rocks, because it doesn't change as much as the Earth has changed and weathered over the years. I'll get going. It was December of 1996, and I was in Utah on Interstate 80 headed westbound, back home to Elko, Nevada. And every time an 18-wheeler's lights came into view, I held up my thumb, because I was out of gas, and I was walking. I was valiantly trying to get to the gas station that was about 2.5 or 3 miles down the road. And all I could focus on was that neon sign. This was before I had a cell phone. Totally changes everything. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, I'm going to give you a story that my buddies at work thought was pretty darn funny when I told them. And I hope that you can find some humor in it. Let me tell you about northeast Nevada and northwest Utah. It's about 225 miles from Elko, Nevada to Salt Lake City. And I can count on one hand how many towns are in between those two cities. The halfway point is called Wendover. And whenever I would drive from Elko to Salt Lake City to catch a plane, I had just enough gas to get to the Salt Lake and then back to Wendover and fill up again. It was about 340 miles, and I figured that my truck could probably go 380 or 400 before it finally ran out of gas, which I had not done at this point. So about halfway between Salt Lake and Wendover, I'm looking down at my gas gauge every 5 seconds, wondering if I'm going to make it. I got about 50 miles to go, because I tracked on my trip meter, how long it was going to take or how many miles. 40, 30. Oh, there's that tree. It's metaphor. The tree of Utah. I was wondering why that thing was there. But it turns out it's 26 miles from there to the border. So I knew I had 26 miles now. 10, 5, oh, please, 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 4. Ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. And the engine dies. And I come coasting down to a stop. Below freezing, no cell phone. Time to make a valiant effort for the gas station. So what got me in this situation? Well, there's, several factors. For one, I booked a late flight coming back, and it was delayed 2 hours. If I booked it earlier, it wouldn't have been so late. It wouldn't have been 1 a.m. What else? Well, Elko also has an airport. I could have flown out of Elko, and I had to drive 3 hours to Salt Lake City, but it was a lot cheaper to do it that way. But actually, the number one factor was that when I was leaving the Salt Lake airport, I passed right by a gas station that I knew was the very last gas station until I got to Wendover, 115 miles away. Why? Why live on the edge? Why did I do this to myself? Well, I was used to the drive. I knew I had enough. Now here I am, walking down the interstate. Finally reached the gas station. The clerk was so nice, lent me a gas can, I filled it up, started back. It doesn't take too long before carrying a full can of gas gets not very fun. Start getting tired, switching arms. And along with being tired and frustrated and angry and anxious, sometimes you can become paranoid and delusional. So about the time that I should have found my truck, there's a big piece of K-rail there instead with flashing lights. Well, it's obvious what happened. The highway department came out and towed my truck away, and they left this piece of K-rail right in its spot. Well, I don't need my gas can anymore. I'm not going to lug it all the way back to the gas station. Put it down. What I had underestimated was the consequences of an action that I took before my flight, when I left 2 weeks before. I had decided to drive up to Salt Lake City the night before and spend the night in the parking lot. Now, to keep from freezing to death, I let my truck run for 4 or 5 hours. Thereby, that's where the gas went. Valiantly back to the gas station again. No cell phone, payphone, called 911. Hey, can you help me? I told her my story. Well, you need to report your truck as stolen, or they're not going to do anything. Okay, it's stolen. 10 minutes later, Cop's there. I told him my story. He says, well, why don't we take a drive and look for it? It's possible that you might have misplaced it. Okay, yeah, I've misplaced my car keys before, but really, I've misplaced my truck on the side of the road. Okay, so I went with him. And sure enough, there was my truck, right there where I left it, out of gas. And less than 50 yards away, a big piece of K-rail with flashing lights. And the cop points, and he says, is that gas can you were carrying? I've decided since then to not live on the edge quite so much. It's too stressful. And knock on wood, I have not run out of gas ever since. I will never forget the 2.5, 3 hours of walking, 8 or so miles in the middle of the night. I was so concerned that night about making it home and getting to work. I actually did. I actually made it to work, or made it to home at the time that I would have gotten up so that I could get to work on time. And if it should ever happen to me again, next thing I'll do is I'll pull out my cell phone and I'm going to call AAA. Thank you.